Welcome to yet another edition of CNBC Africa panel discussion focusing on Rwanda's aviation industry. I'll be your host, Segawa Arnold. Now, Rwanda is positioning herself to become an aviation hub for the region, with the government investing heavily in the aviation infrastructure development. The country is set to host the Aviation Africa 2017 conference, bringing together more than 400 delegates to discuss the potential of the sector and what it holds in the continent, as well as internal and external challenges it faces. How does Rwanda aviation industry play part and parcel of this process? Joining me to deliberate this rather interesting conversation and topic is on my immediate left, John Mirenge, CEO of Rwanda. Right next to him, we do have Claire Akamanzi, who's the CEO of Rwanda Development Board. And on my extreme left is Patrick Nkuliemfura, who is the MD of Akagera Aviation. Let's start this off with 2016, a rather fruitful year, if you ask me. Rwanda adding on to the fleet, Akagera Aviation, without a doubt, going over and above when it came to the World Economic Forum for Africa, not forgetting the 27th Africa Union Summit that was hosted right here in Kigali, Rwanda. And don't get me started on Rwanda Development Board. Very many investments, but let's concentrate on the aviation space. New routes that we are seeing for Rwanda. Just walk us through some of the highlights for 2016, John.
2016 was a very exciting year for all of us as a country, but particularly as an airline, we saw tremendous growth, and we can say that probably the big meetings that were hosted in the country and everything else that happened, the big events, must have definitely contributed. We ended the year with the passenger numbers in excess of 600,000, and that was probably about 15% higher than the previous year. We were able to add some new routes like Cotonou in Benin, Abidjan in Ivory Coast, and a few others that probably I don't remember here, but the year was very successful for us. And yes, we acquired for the first time in our history wide bodies, 2 brand new Airbuses, state of the art, all configured with Wi-Fi and all the goodies that you can ever wish to be on a brand new aircraft. We also, in the same period, added to our fleet a new 737-800, again, fully equipped with Wi-Fi. And we basically rewarded our end-of-year travelers with enjoying the comfort and the beauty that goes with flying business class with all flat beds, and think about anything and everything is there on those planes. So that created a lot of excitement in the market, and I can tell you the numbers have shown that, and those numbers have continued to grow even this new year, 2017.
Right. I want to bring Claire into the conversation, because I personally have enjoyed many of these, the Wi-Fi and the flatbeds. Well, I haven't flown business, but I have enjoyed some of these frivolities that we might take for granted. But what is the cost of having the new Boeings that we are seeing, rather the Airbuses that we are seeing? What is the cost of running many of these jets? Well, many of these countries are developing countries, but what is the cost of having these?
Well, the cost of running the airline, I think John is more suited to talk about that. But I'll talk about the economic benefit that we get when we see investments such as what we see in Rwanda. First of all, yes, I'm sure the new aircraft did have some costs that went to purchasing them. But what we've seen is that over time, there's actually been a benefit that has been associated with the increased investments in the airline industry. If you look at the numbers of tourism the number of the value of tourism we're getting today, it's actually quite impressive how it's growing. We expect that when the final numbers are out, 2016 will have taken us over the $400 billion mark, which is a first in the history of our tourism receipts, compared to 360 the year before, and even much less the year before. And we see a correlation between how much we're investing in the airline industry and the growth that we're seeing there, and also how much we're getting in terms of the economic impact these investments going forward. And that's really interesting, and we see that the tourism sector is really vibrant. But perhaps of the larger number that I'm talking about, a specific interesting component of the tourism sector that we're seeing that is growing is the MICE, the conference tourism. By end of last year, we had gone to about $55 million of receipts just from MICE, which is a new area. And we think that this is very much directly linked to the growth of the airline industry in the country, and of course the other infrastructure that goes with the MICE sector. But it's not just the tourism sector that benefits from the airline industry. I must say that, of course, when a country like Rwanda, as we promote investments within the RDB, our work is so much easier when the country we're promoting is accessible to the world.
Right.
Because then the world can come to Rwanda and actually see the opportunities for themselves. Mm-hmm. If you look at the investment figures that we have, the new investments crossing the $1.2 billion mark, it's again because these investors are able to come to Rwanda. They are able to see what the country has and actually benefit from it. So the economic impact vis-a-vis the economic cost or the financial cost, I think is not comparable. It's
a very interesting trade-off if you do put it like that. How much are you investing vis-a-vis the returns? But I want to bring Patrick into the conversation here because when we look at Akagera Aviation, much of what you are doing might be feeding off the travelers, the business travelers, or interesting statistic that I read, 40% of the travelers coming into Rwanda are actually here for business. This is as per last year, which is very interesting. But how many of these are actually, do you see as Akagera going into rather your more short-haul flights and your travels across Rwanda?
Thank you for the question. I think that first of all, you have to understand one thing. We are complementary to each other. What the airline, Rwanda Air, is doing is bringing in those people into the country, but at the same time, there may be investors coming through RDB, and we try to showcase what is remarkable Rwanda through either a longer stay after the conferences or before the conferences, or show them the investment opportunities that are into the country. So it's a linkage, and that is why I think it's probably very good to say that the government had a brilliant idea to put together ATL, which bring all the aviation stakeholders together in order to ensure that the synergy that we can create together can actually bear fruits when it comes to investments.
Right, John, let me bring it back to you. Let's talk about the new routes. Now, with the new routes, many of them are long haul, and you have made some rather dashing investments. Some firsts for Eastern Africa. Even Ethiopia didn't have those, Ethiopian Airlines. When you look at some of the routes that you're looking at, maybe Mumbai, who's to say that you can edge out the longer players who have been in the game, Ethiopian Airlines or South African Airlines? Is this feasible in the midterm?
Let me put it this way. Probably in our business, you need to appreciate that it's not about edging out, especially when it comes to the continent. Yeah. The continent, our continent, meaning Africa, is still the least served in terms of aviation services. So even what you see with all the legacy carriers that you just mentioned, they are not able to, it's just a scratch on top. So we still have a lot of unserved demand on this continent. So the more we get into this business and do it right and provide the right product at the right pricing, there will always be people wanting to travel. Coming back to what you're saying in terms of the long hauls, again, as an airline, we've been, over the last 6 years, playing basically onto the African continent as basically, would I say, a regional carrier. So that in itself would not allow us to completely grow to our full capacity unless we add trunk routes beyond the continent. And this is exactly the route that we are taking in this year, going to Mumbai, going to London, going to Frankfurt, later in the year, going to the US, so that we add more options to our African travelers. And again, as a country, we look at where our tourists come from. We look at where our investors come from as a country. And in our case, the UK, Germany, the US definitely rank very high. I think they're about the first three. in terms of numbers that come towards numbers that come to the country. So we want to get there and ease their way to their travel to Rwanda, back and forth by offering direct products, high-end, high-quality products that will make them enjoy their travel to the country. And again, as you put it, make them start feeling the remarkable Rwanda right from their destinations, from their cities.
Right, very interesting when you mentioned that. I hadn't actually congratulated you on becoming the president for the Africa Airlines Association for 2017. I think that should have been the first thing that I should have mentioned.
Thank you very much.
Claire, let's bring you in here. Bugesera, we are looking at a new airport already. Kigali International Airport has been very revered and winning a lot of accolades. But earlier on this week, we did see the government of Rwanda divesting from I&M Bank, the IPO, the 19.1 shares. We're looking at over 7 billion coming out of that. Tell me, how are you looking to raise the rest of the funds from the front of the government to finance the new airport in Bugesera?
First of all, I'd like to add something on what John was saying about the product that you offer travelers. A few days ago, a friend of mine traveled from Douala to Kigali on Rwanda, and two things impressed her. Mm-hmm. And it was not just a new route or just a new product. It was that she could.
Besides the hospitable hostesses.
Yes, yes. The first thing was that she was just impressed that she could buy a ticket online so quickly without any hitches, and that she left Douala on time, according to the scheduled time that she was supposed to leave. And so other than just, the numbers of routes and all that, there's a lot of space in just giving people the kind of product they really want to get. And I think Rwanda has been demonstrating that, just like my friend from Douala experienced. But back to Bugesera, first of all, the program to divest from I&M by government is not necessarily linked to Bugesera Airport. What is going to happen is that the money that's going to come from the proceeds from the IPO is actually going to go to the Treasury. And then how the money in the pool of the Treasury is disbursed, depends on the priorities the government has. And so the money will go to the Treasury, and then from the Treasury, the Minister of Finance will look at the priorities as zero. But that said, of course, Bugesera Airport is a priority that we have among the projects that the government supports. Important to note is that there's already a public-private partnership that has been signed for Bugesera Airport between the government and a company called Motangel. And so financing of that is going to be a mixture of a public and private sector financing, including going out to the market to support the project. So the burden is not wholly on the government. We're sharing this with the private sector, and the private sector, particularly this company I'm talking about, saw the opportunity, liked the opportunity, and signed on.
Remarkable Rwanda indeed. The other thing that I need to mention maybe is the fact that besides booking your ticket online, you can actually change it with just a call, and that's of course on your toll-free number. Mm-hmm. But yes, besides that, Patrick, let's talk about domestic tourism, because one of the biggest problems that we have seen, at least for Uganda, Burundi, and Rwanda, is the fact that domestic tourism is below the 20% mark, and this has really troubled us of late. Tell me, how can Akagera Aviation edge this population of over 12 million to make sure that domestic tourists actually contribute to the bigger piece of the pie?
Thank you. We have been trying, together with RTB, the tourism sector, to come up together with packages for the regional travelers. It's fair to say that the biggest travelers that we have are from the East African community, being Kenya, Uganda, or surprisingly also DRC. We've been trying to put together packages, and together with a campaign that is Tembere Rwanda, that is actually ongoing with RTB. We're trying to put together things that actually can be working for some of the, for our local population in order to promote what we have best in the country. And it's on the increase when it comes to, it's approximately, I would say, around 15-20% increase from last year. We're getting there, but we still need to push.
Right. I like that you're bringing in the East Africa community there and the EAC, something that His Excellency Paul Kagame is very big on and has actually invested a lot in over the years. But I want to bring John in here when it comes to COMESA. 2014, we did see Rwanda nominated to coordinate the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA's airspace harmonization project. Now, over the years, up to now, we're yet to see a flight. Africa is yet not connected. With such legislation, where's the will? Where's the political will to make sure that some of this is actually pushed forward? I know you're coming from another side of the spectrum, but I want to pick your brain. You and Claire, we just need to see more political will, and what needs to be done to move this to the next level?
What I would say, I think the political will is there. I mean, that's why all of that was signed and agreed on. What I know is that in terms of that organ, the offices have been established in Rwanda.
Right.
The executives have been nominated, and they are already on base. I think it took a bit longer in terms of nominating and setting up the office. But I think from now on, we're going to see momentum.
Right.
So it will work, and I think it's a great thing. So I'll probably stop there.
Claire, what do we need to do to see more investment bodies, like the equivalent of RDB here in Rwanda, across maybe your counterparts across East Africa, to make sure that maybe they're at par with you? Because much as I'm Ugandan, we're not really moving the envelope as fast as we need to do, as we see for Rwanda Development Board. What can we do to rekindle this and have everyone read from your book?
Well, a few years ago, the World Bank did a study that demonstrated that if each of the African countries picked the best that each of them has and put it together, basically create an ideal country with the best in each of the countries, you would actually be among the top 10 best places to do business in the world. And today, the top African countries are not among the first 30.
Right.
In the world. But that means that the ingredients that are needed to become the best 10 in the world are actually within the African continent here. So that means that each country has something they're very good at, perhaps not everything that they need to be good at. And so the question is, how do we collaborate or learn from each other? We don't even have to go very far to learn from each other.
Right.
Next door, there's something that Kenya is very good at, Tanzania is very good at, Uganda is very good at, Rwanda is good at. And if we continuously integrate and work together, the most important thing is how do we create a platform where we can identify the strengths for each country and then put them together.
But Claire, that's my biggest problem, because what you're saying is, yes, best practices, but I know John here is a seasoned lawyer. And when we look at the constitution of Rwanda, Rwanda has managed to get the best of the best, constituted in its constitution, and it's working. Unlike the rest of Kenya, which, well, drew up a constitution long before. So, best practices vis-a-vis public sector and the private sector. That is where we are lacking, and I think that's where everyone needs to read from your holy book.
I think that sharing practices, Rwanda sharing what it's good at and other countries doing the same is something that we have to continuously do, and not to give up, and not to give up when things are not moving as fast as we can, because if we do, we lose the big picture, which is where we should be heading. So we just have to keep trying to learn from each other.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. It should happen faster than it's happening. But I think we just have to, it's an ideal worth pursuing continuously.
Patrick, I have to push you on UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. For the longest time, I would think, well, as a journalist, we needed to get the best shots of the Kigali Convention Center. You get into a helicopter, go up there, get the magic shots. As we speak now, drones can do that. Isn't this edging you out of business?
No, we're complementary. I think that there are things that helicopter can do. There's things that UAVs can be doing.
Like technical for Valentine's.
Actually, the thing is that we're complementary. Right. We are actually even pushing to have them among the services that we'll be offering. So it's not something that is scaring us. It's the opposite. I believe that you need to embrace technology, the new technology that is coming, and this is how Rwanda is moving, and this is how Rwanda is moving fast. And we believe that the complementarity that is creating on the commercial side is so interesting when you look at the health sector, when you look at what is happening here on the health sector with Zipline and so on, and UPS. I think opportunities are there. And it's for us to capture them and to make sure that it's, used at the best way we can actually do it.
Let's talk about the all-important question of Uganda and Tanzania. They're looking at over 600 million put on the table to rekindle their national carriers. Now, what does this mean for Rwanda and the national carrier here?
Let me probably link this to what you were saying, what Claire was talking about in terms of learning from each other. I mean, a new entrant into this aviation, commercial aviation. We have continued to learn, and we still learn from our big brothers. Case in point is Ethiopia. That supports us in so many other ways. And there's a lot that we have learned from Kenya Airways, and we still work with them on a number of things, and we support each other wherever we can. So first and foremost, the two other countries, the East African countries, Uganda and Tanzania, getting to this field, for us it's something that we have always been very happy to see happen, because one, it makes the whole envelope bigger. I mean, this region of Africa is still underserved, as I earlier mentioned. And the more we get professional operators in place, gives us an opportunity to partner with each other, synergize in all places, and eventually, who knows, like the rest of the world, take the US, take Europe, we've seen previously individual companies merge over time to try take advantage of economies of scale and bring their efficiencies to fruition. In our situation too, I believe over time we realize that we need to be working together. And with that, we'll be able to make what individually we are trying to struggle with become a much bigger and stronger product that we can offer as a sub-region.
Right.
So when our friends and brothers on the other side of the border go into this investment, we wish them luck, and we will do whatever we need to do to cooperate and support them where we can. I mean, at times I don't need to be carrying engineers to Uganda if Uganda Airlines has engineers that can release my planes, and vice versa. So you can see that in itself is already an efficiency that is coming in for both of us. In terms of competition, yeah, I think at the end of the day, we are all here to serve our people. And our people need better. They don't need monopolies. They need good service providers that give them value for money. And competition normally does that. So we will put all our products out at the table. And I would say, I'm not even going to say let the best win, but I would say let us all cooperate and work together and serve our people.
Claire and Patrick, I want to pick your brain on the same. What do you think of the investment of Kenya and Uganda, Tanzania and Uganda into the national carriers? I want to get your thoughts on the same.
Well, I think John said it all. You know, the pie is big, and it's about sharing the pie and seeing, you know, how much of the pie each is going to try and get. But I must also say that in doing that, there will always be unique selling propositions that each airline is going to give. What is it that is unique about Rwanda? What is it that's unique about whatever other airline that Rwanda is going to be competing with? And I think Rwanda has already demonstrated certain unique qualities that it already has, not just as Rwanda, but as a country. And I think the ease of getting to the country, you know, with a visa on arrival for all African countries is something that Rwanda thrives on, that the country has had. The living on time, as I mentioned earlier, you know, digital solutions or digital applications to buy tickets and things like that. So each country will have to come up with its unique selling proposition. And I think Rwanda has already demonstrated something which I think makes them eligible to compete with others.
Innovation, without a doubt. Patrick?
Starting an airline is a process. It takes time and it takes a strategy. The strategy may be different and it's not, and you have multiple routes that you want to be taking and so on. So the process can be, like John was saying, either you complement with each other and you create synergy in order to get to a point, or you come up with your own strategy in order to achieve what you're achieving. What I can say is that we wish them good luck, but we do believe that, like Claire was saying, we are presenting here a really quality product that took time to mature and is actually getting to the best available right now.
Right, many thanks. Let's just try to wrap it up there. Very interesting insights from my esteemed panel here. We do have John Mirenge on my left, who is the CEO of Rwanda. Right next to him, we do have Claire Kamanzi, who happens to be the CEO of Rwanda Development Board, and Patrick Nkulimufura, who is the MD of Akagera Aviation. Coming up, we'll be taking a very short break, but when we return, we'll be delving into the oil prices, not forgetting commodities that have hurt much of our growth when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa. But relaying that onto the oil prices, we're looking at the rocket feather effect, where we do see many of these prices go up very fast, but when it comes to coming down in reflection to tickets, air tickets that is, it takes rather a short or a longer time. All that and more right after the break. Welcome back to this edition of CNBC Africa's panel discussion on Rwanda's aviation space. If you're just joining us, earlier on we're delving into the rather interesting ideas and the thoughts of my panelists here who happen to be captains of the industry. That's, of course, the aviation industry. On my left, we have John Mirenge, who is the CEO of Rwanda, Claire Kamanzi, right next to him, who is the CEO of Rwanda Development Board, and Patrick Nkulimufura, who is the MD of Akagera Aviation. Earlier on, we were going on about the discourse when it comes to maybe connecting here and there across Africa, some of the challenges that we have seen, and the achievements. Rwanda getting new routes. We're seeing Cotonou, not forgetting the new Airbus that has been bought. One of them is a first for Eastern Africa. Very interesting developments, and of course my panel is very well equipped to answer my rather tough questions. Let's talk about the oil. As per 2012, we're looking at close to $106 for a barrel of oil. Right now, we're looking at, last year, it dipped down to $29 a barrel. But this is yet to be reflected on many of the tickets. Maybe let me start with Patrick, because he seems very eager to answer this one. Patrick?
Well, the thing, our business is different because actually we deal into the charter business, which is actually a little bit different from the commercial aviation as such. And the other point is that we also do use what we call AFGAS, which is actually different from the Jet A1.
Right.
And the AFGAS was not affected by this. The price didn't go down as much as the. Nevertheless, we did do a readjustment of the prices of the price charges that we do all around the country, and we still do those promotion in order to reflect the downturn that we had seen into the oil prices recently.
John, do you want to get in there? I'm very sure you have a very interesting argument.
Yes. One, I'll start by probably saying, if you take a historical look at where fares have been standing over the last 10 years, you'll definitely agree with me that today's fares are the lowest that they can ever be.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And this, of course, is as a result of a lot of capacity being thrown on the market, competition, and a few other factors that worked in favor of the customer again. When you take fares are a product of multiple factors. So oil prices of fuel is just but one. Okay, the biggest in terms of contributing to the fare mechanism, but it's not by any means alone. So I'll say we are affected specifically in the area, in this region that we operate, by the fact that we are further away from the sea. So we still have to incur certain costs that did not change whether oil prices world over went down. But also take into consideration all the other aspects, I'll say, especially on the African continent, matters of charges and taxes, airport fees that are among the highest in the world. So it becomes very difficult to even realize an immediate downward movement in terms of fares just because there is a drop in oil prices. But again, having said all that, from where we were a year ago, I can tell you we are already 60% above where we were. And who knows, we probably are heading to where you mentioned that we hope not, I touch wood. But the fact is that, again, the volatility around oil prices become very difficult for operators world over to start playing with their fares every other day that there is a movement, just because something either positive or negative has happened world over and oil prices start fluctuating. It will be very difficult for even the traveler to ever plan their trips. It simply means that if we were to go by the trend that we've seen over the last 12 months, we should all be seeing a 60% increase on the ticket of every traveler going around the world, because the truth is that there's been a 60% movement upwards. But again, as I started saying when I said it, we are still at about the lowest. I mean, we have all these low-cost carriers that have come into play and have brought down fares. So I think a traveler of today is in a much better place than 10 years ago.
Progress, if you ask me. Claire, I want to bring you onto this one, infrastructure. We did see Rwanda Development Board embark on the MICE strategy, meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions, which, like you mentioned, is working perfectly. But as MICE is working, where are we on human resource development, especially when it comes to the aviation space? How many pilots are female?
I wish there were more. But at least I know Esther.
Let alone Rwandan, because I know Babatunde. How are we when it comes to equipping our own, if I could say?
Well, in terms of numbers of pilots, again, I think that's very much a Rwanda response to give. But when we talk about developing the aviation sector, on the part of government, it's not an isolated sector. It's a sector that we look at as a whole ecosystem that supports other sectors. And I think Patrick did mention, the linkages between different sectors. And one of those linkages is actually how do you supply human, capacity, in terms of training schools in the country that can support the aviation sector and other sectors as well. I know that Akagera Aviation, and maybe Patrick will talk about their plans to actually have in-house training of aviation experts in different areas, and I think he'll talk about that.
I was actually going to go there now.
Yes, maybe it's time to go there. But I'll just say that that other than that, we also have, for example, tourism, transport, local transportation, and all of the skills that go with the bigger sector. And we have the Workforce Development Authority in Rwanda that's also giving that technical level of skills to support, the very specialized aviation sector that I think Patrick can talk about.
Right, but Patrick, without a doubt, I was just about to ask you about that.
We've been actually already doing aviation training for pilots, but it has mainly been on helicopters. Actually, we are proud to be saying that the four first women pilots on helicopter were from...
That's what I want to hear. That's what I was asking for.
And they are now pilots...
They're doing so much better than the guys,
yes,
right?
that by far. And we've trained up approximately 50 to 60 pilots already on helicopter. And the aim of ATL, Aviation, Tourism and Logistics, is actually to ensure that Akagera Aviation not only we train on fixed wing, which is commercial pilot that will be actually going on Rwanda Air, but at the same time provide training for engineers that will be working on the aircraft that are with Rwanda Air. Not only that, we'll also be doing what we call ancillary courses for airport technician. In view of the new Bugesera airport, you would need airport technicians to be working on that airport, and this is what we're aiming. We are in the last stage of actually getting maybe funded when it comes to that. A business plan has already been approved, and we're looking to train a minimum of 30 to 40 pilots on commercial within the next 2 years.
Do you see yourself leveraging this to actually become a regional hub when it comes to, well, the aviation space, where everyone knows if you actually want to become a pilot or an aeronautical engineer, as they call them, you have to go to Rwanda, you have to go to Akagera. Is this something that is actually in your plans for the region?
Definitely. The good thing about Rwanda is that it's just that the standards that we're aiming are EASA standards. Excuse me. EASA standards are one of the toughest when it comes to the level of safety that is required in the aviation sector. And that's what we want to be starting with. And that will give us an edge when it comes to the level of pilots that we want to be producing. We want to be producing quality pilots that Rwanda Air can be saying we approve of the level that we're getting. And
Right.
at the same time, the region.
Interesting, very interesting insights
To
there.
put you into perspective, there is a demand, there is the Boeing technical outlook between 2012 and 2031. There is, only on Africa, there is a demand for 16,000 pilots.
Wow.
So opportunities there for us.
Wow, that's one of those statistics that draw you back. I don't know if you want to get in there, John.
Probably what I would say is that I'll start with your first question, how many Rwandese are there? I mean, over the last 5 years, we've been able to train about 36 Rwandese pilots, 6 of whom are women. And one of them, actually, the most senior of them is now a senior first officer on the Airbus. That's Esther. Yeah, so the others are much younger. They're just, they've just been type-rated. We intend to continue training at least 20 new pilots every year. Previously, we've been doing it through Ethiopian Academy, but now with the ATL Academy that Patrick just alluded to, that makes it even much better. The number could even be much higher. And then technicians, we already have about 46 of them. And we have about 30 that are still undergoing training. So this is a process that we embarked on and are not stopping, because as you put it, the demand is there for all these people and the whole world is looking for them. He's talking about Africa alone, but I tell you, in places like China, today they have planes they can't get delivered because they are not able to get pilots. So it's really a critical thing that we get this academy working. And so far, even with the 36 pilots, that is just under 20% of our current force among pilots. So you understand we still highly dependent on expatriate pilots, of course, who come at a cost.
Interesting. Claire, I want to ask you about money, because without a doubt, it's very interesting when I look at the numbers here. Net external debt has risen as a percentage of GDP. It rose from 24.7% from 3.6% in 2012 to 24.7% in 2016. Now, you did mention the trade-off before we went for the break, but moving forward, are we about to see this debt actually rise? And what is the way forward, at least in the midterm?
Well, if you look at those debt levels, anything still within the range of 20-something% is still very healthy. And so even though our debt is increasing, we keep the discipline of making sure that it doesn't go beyond an unsustainable range. And so that's something that the Minister of Finance and the other players actually ensure that we stay disciplined within an acceptable range for the economy. And by the way, we work with partners like the IMF who also make sure that your debt levels are sustainable. And so whatever investments we plan to make in the future, it's always going to make sure that that discipline remains within the planning. And that said, we also don't see our future economic plans always going to be dependent on public debt. We very much support public-private partnerships. I explained that was the approach we used for the new Bugesera airport, but we're attracting a lot more private capital to come within the country to support the infrastructure development, so the government doesn't have to shoulder that all the time.
Right, very interesting there. But let's take it to the commercial space, Patrick. How are you looking at this, the funding in the midterm at least? How are you looking at this? Without a doubt, you cannot go on the equity front. How are you looking to raise funds when it comes to Akajara?
Well, we're looking at different options. Joint venture are an avenue where we've been actually talking. We've been talking through Rwanda Air with an Ethiopian school academy that would like to come and implement and look at a joint venture at the level of the academy. We'll also look at different options when it comes to schools that are already established in Europe and in other part of the world. You have to take into consideration one thing. Pilot training there is a very important component that is the weather. The weather, we have a very good weather all year long in this country versus the European countries where sometimes the weather is not that conducive for training. So we're trying to see different options whereby you can create synergies when the weather is not conducive to training, to have people also being trained in this part of the world. So these are the different approaches that we've been looking at, but at the same time, through institutions like RDB, we also approach investors that may have appetite into going into Aviation Academy, and depending on what they're proposing, we'll assess.
Right. John, we've always been asking you whenever you come here, Fifth Freedom Air Rights. This is a conversation that you must be tired of now, but with the movement of the East Africa community, are we about to see Fifth Freedom Air Rights come to actually pass? Especially, we have seen some turbulence with Tanzania. Is this something that is actually achievable?
Yeah, let me put it this way. Interestingly, first of all the member states in this sub-region are signatories to the Yamoussoukro decision, which is more than 20 years in place. But most recently, about 2 years ago, most of the countries, again, in this region were among the pioneers that came up with, basically pushed a motion at the AU to basically rejuvenate that Yamoussoukro, which was sleeping, basically meaning that we need to see implementation more fast-tracked than it has been. So everybody is a signatory, but very few of them are doing the implementation in terms of the Fifth Freedom. We've had our own, let me say, fights and difficulty in some places, but by and large, I would say in East Africa, it's being implemented. I mean, you see Kenya Airways, you see us go through Uganda to Nairobi. That is Fifth Freedom, and vice versa. And in terms of Tanzania, we will see. Now that they have an airline, they'll probably be among those pushing to make it happen. But having said that, there is also good news on the horizon. I mean, we've seen some countries, and I'll tell you one, I'll mention one most recently. We did actually sign Seventh Freedom in Benin, with Benin. So that is a superior level in terms of liberalization compared to Fifth Freedom, in that actually you are not only expected to drop and pick, you are free to even base yourself in that country.
But then my follow-up question would be, what is the constitution of Rwanda travelers coming from Benin?
I would say Benin is one of those very interesting destinations. It's a trader's country. So very good traffic, especially within their sub-region. And that is part of what drove us to seeking those rights that we will be exercising by June. But also, there is, I would say there's interest within the country itself to spread beyond the sub-region and cooperate more with the East African region, and also beyond that. So the country, I think, is a country that has decided to break with the past of letting circumstances take control over you but now rather the other way around, take control of the circumstances around you and better the lives of the people. So they've become very aggressive, and along those lines, we've been working to see how, as an airline, in the first instance, we would go in and try to, one, create a hub there and increase business, increase travel, increase accessibility. And of course, that comes with all the good things that Claire was talking about in terms of investment and business.
Right, Claire, again, investment. Are there any strategic partners? I know the government of Rwanda is very keen on strategic partnerships. Are there any strategic partnerships when it comes to the aviation space that we should be looking to in the near term, at least from your end?
Well, we're open to strategic partners, and until a deal is signed, we're always looking for a partner. I talked about one in Bugesera Airport, but it's not even just in the aviation sector. When John was talking about taking advantage of circumstances and what's happening, the aviation sector actually, I think, is catching up with something that's already happening, which is there's a lot of big movement from different places. I recently went to the launch of Java House on Kigali Heights. Java House is a Kenyan brand. And the people that came who recognized Java House were very many, because they've been to Kenya or they've been to places where Java House is. Now, you have a population, a big population in Kigali that knows Java House. It just demonstrates how the movement among different countries is very obvious. That same Kigali Heights has an Italian restaurant, has a South African brand, has a Namibian brand, has a South African Ghanaian university that's establishing there. And so the world is such that these collaborations are happening very much. And so what the airline industry is doing is facilitating this. And once they do that, then they actually make it easier for investors to come and partner with whoever they need to partner in the country, with the government or private sector, to make things happen.
Right, Patrick, I want to ask you a question that is maybe personal. For the longest time, we did associate helicopters with maybe officials, someone very fancy is flying into the country, or from one city to the other. Now, how can we change this narrative so that the ordinary, you or me, we call them Baturaja here, the ordinary citizen can actually become a chopper flyer?
We have put together some packages at a very reasonable price over the weekends, where a regular family places is only $100 per person, kind of packages to do scenic tour of Kigali. We have also, come up with Valentine packages, and it was pretty successful, actually.
Right.
So it's not anymore something that is actually elitist or for the elite or anything. We are trying as much as possible, and it shows in our numbers that the first clients that we have among are Americans, the number 2 are Rwandans. So you'll be surprised. So that means that there is a better understanding of the product that we're offering, and there is a better penetration when it comes to how we're trying to position it into what remarkable Rwanda can offer.
John, let's talk about your fleet. We have Bombardiers, we have Boeings, we have Airbus. Tell me, how do you find the middle ground of what to get? I'm asking like I'm buying a toy, but this must be a very hard decision for you to make.
This is a very common phenomenon that you'll find among airlines that are especially a mix of point-to-point and hub and spoke, in that each type or each size, actually it's all about size. Each size is meant to serve a certain niche. I mean, we have regionals, that's why they're called regional aircraft, right. Being the Bombardier mainly, will be for your one, or even under 1 hour to maximum 2.5 hours. Okay. And in our case, we are part of a continent, and we are in the center of a continent that we need to reach within that time limit. But also, we need to get beyond the 3-hour span. Hence, you need narrow bodies, and those you can't run away from. So in our case, we chose the Boeing for the 737s. But now the need comes to go beyond and cover intercontinental 8 hours and more. And in our situation here, we looked at all options. Either we had to continue with Boeing for the wide bodies or Airbus, because those are the real key suppliers that they are in the world today. And in our situation, we opted for Airbus for very good reasons, tested, came in at the right time in terms of our growth. So there's no way we can run away from that. You could only go away from that if you're an island operator. Okay. And then you need more of wide bodies, long range, or narrow bodies. So hence there's no reason for you to have any, what do you call them, regionals. So in our situation, we'll continue playing the 3 types within our fleet. And as we talk, we're actually in the process of increasing the fleet on the regionals. We've just been increasing on the narrow bodies, but also we are in talks to get more of the Airbuses, because if we start going to the US at the end of the year, two wide bodies are just nothing. Right. Actually, it's already now starting to put pressure on all of us because we've realized that the routes that we previously thought we could be switching a narrow body with a wide body can never allow a narrow body to be operated there again, because the numbers dictate that. But also, if you've introduced a good product to your clients, you don't want to step back. Right. So the 3 types will always stick in our fleet
portfolio, of course, with the right balance.
With the right balance, yes. But also, I probably know you would have wanted to say, why didn't you continue with either Boeing or whatever?
Yes.
But let me tell you, at the end of it, if you're moving from a narrow body Boeing aircraft to a narrow Boeing Airbus aircraft, the difference between it and the wide body is too wide apart. So you can as well go to the other one.
Very interesting when you delve into the technicalities. Yes. But before I let you go, I have to ask my panelists here, the Aviation Africa 2017 summit that is happening right here in Kigali, Rwanda. Maybe let me start with you, Patrick. What are your expectations, maybe as we wind up?
Our expectation is actually to market what we have best in this country, to market the investment opportunities that we have, to market the product that we have, but also at the same time make interesting network connections that can actually bear much more return on investments, and to replicate that maybe in 2 years and have a much bigger aviation air show. We want to ensure that it's a success, and we will do everything in order to make it successful.
Right. Claire?
Well, first of all, short term, our expectations that it contributes sufficiently to our MICE strategy, which I think it's already doing. Yeah. But medium to long term, we believe as an institution that showcases Rwanda, the best way to showcase the country is for people to come and see and feel the country, and nothing replaces that when it comes to showcasing a country. And so we expect that when people come to see the country, they see the true character of Kigali, the true character of Rwanda, and they really get interested from a very informed point of view about what they can do in the country. And so we expect that they don't only come to negotiate aviation deals, but also maybe look at something else that is interesting, that they can bring their partners or people that they know to invest in the country. So we expect it to contribute to the long-term showcasing of opportunities to invest in the country.
Right. Pat, John?
Yeah, what I would say is that, first of all, Aviation Africa is a very high-profile event, and this is the second of its kind that is being hosted in Rwanda. But to have chosen Rwanda as the venue is in itself, would I say, demonstration of what our aviation development as a country has gotten us to. So basically our aviation industry has come of age, that when all these aviation experts around the world are thinking of the next venue to host a big event like this. Rwanda comes up as one of those. So it's very, very important for us. It's really big, it's a big statement. And as a country, it will position us for even bigger events like Patrick was saying. These events keep running. I mean, last year we hosted one of the Afra stakeholders meeting in Rwanda. It's a bit smaller than what we'll see next week. At the end of the year, courtesy of my presidency at Afra, yes, will host the CEO's AGM and all stakeholders. So this one will even be much bigger, talking of more than 600 people converging on the city and speaking aviation as their language. Yes. So it's very, very important, and we're very excited about the event next week. We'll be able to learn more, see more, a lot of innovations, get people to coordinate and link. And as a country, I think the 2 days will be very, very important in that, again, we'll be hosting aviators from around the world, yeah, in Kigali.
Many thanks. I'm afraid that's all the time that we did have. I need to thank my esteemed panelists, of course, Patrick and Kulim for the very well spoken. Over to Claire Kamanzi, insightful as ever, and the ever technical and canny John Mirenje, the CEO of Rwanda Air. That's where we leave it for this special panel discussion right here on CNBC Africa, delving into the ever-interesting aviation space of Rwanda. I'm Arnold Segawa, and from the entire CNBC and Africa team, have a good night.